but in any case, it's in TARP, and a similar provision is in the legislation you propose. In TARP, there are all kinds of special oversight, including Elizabeth Warren. In your proposal, there's no special oversight. And in TARP, those institutions that benefit have at least some restrictions on executive compensation. In your proposal, there's no such restrictions. Now, Section 1204 allows the FDIC to go spend an unlimited amount of money buying the debt obligations of, making loans to, or assisting any systemically important institution in time of trouble. And that is, in the first instance, taxpayer money. Would great harm be done to this statute if we limited the executive branch's authority to a mere $1 trillion and said that if you want to commit more taxpayer money than that, notwithstanding the fact that you hope to get it back from someplace else, that if you need more than $1 trillion, perhaps you ought to come to Congress? Or is there an assumption on Wall Street that Congress makes the wrong decisions, is a bunch of people that cannot be trusted, and that Wall Street cannot be safe unless they have access to unlimited funds without further congressional action beyond that that you proposed?
Congressman, I don't recognize most of your concerns in the approach we recommended, but I understand the concerns, and I think you are right to point out, as many of your colleagues are across the aisle, that it would be a mistake for us as a country, through the reform process, to harden or create an expectation that if you get yourself in trouble, the government's going to come in and save you from that.
Mr. Secretary, I have such limited time. $1 trillion limit. Okay with you? Not okay with you?
Congressman, again, you're taking first of all, you're fundamentally mischaracterizing.
Okay, let's say I'm fundamentally mischaracterizing. If I have an amendment to this section saying it's limited to $1 trillion, is the Treasury going to oppose that, or are they going to support it?
Congressman, it's important to make people understand, and make sure people understand the following thing. This Congress put in law, after the S&L crisis, a very important authority to allow for resolution, not a great word.
Mr. Secretary, I've asked you a simple question. I have very limited time. Would you support it or oppose it, and then let me move on to the next question?
I would not support proposals that would put this country in the position we were in 2007 and 2008, where we did not have the ability to act to protect the taxpayer.
The key thing then is that the executive branch have the power to commit not just $700 billion, but $1 trillion or more without having to have Congress be involved at the time of the crisis.
No, it would not be a fair description of our strategy. And again, the critical test is, do you want to put this country in a position again where we come into the worst financial crisis in generations,
and you have
the ability to protect the taxpayer and the
reclaiming my time, the problem for Wall Street is that Congress had to be involved. It was embarrassing that they didn't get their money for a few days. But let me focus on the one other question, and that is, the only companies that are ever going to benefit from this are the systemically important institutions.
No, that's not true.
Well, it's limited to systemically support.
Look, the only rationale, Congressman, and you'd think that the experience of last year would make this compelling to people, that if your strategy...
Okay, in order for a company to benefit, do you want to look at Section 1203B 1 and 2 of the statute you've presented?
You're mischaracterizing the benefit.
What?
You're mischaracterizing the benefit.
Gentlemen, time's expired. Gentlemen, one last comment.
I would say you can claim that all Americans benefit from a provision that can only help about 20 institutions, but they will have a release of their moral, elimination of moral hazard.
No.
They will have lower cost of capital, and either the taxpayer will pay or the medium-sized banks will pay if it's ever used. I realize
your concern, but if we were proposing that, I would not support it. If you proposed that, I wouldn't support it. But you're right about the concern. The question is how to get the balance right. But look what happened to the country when we allowed a system to build up where we had no choices in the event of failure between stepping in or letting it cause enormous damage.
The gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman from Oklahoma, Mr. Lucas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Mr. Secretary, let's come at this from a slightly different perspective, but along the lines of my colleagues. You've used the phrase in practice several times, and I appreciate that tremendously, because this is not just an academic exercise. There are practical consequences to everything we do.